I got it. Hi, everyone. Annalisa, co-chair of Will Montreal here. For those of you who have already joined, we're just waiting a couple of minutes to make sure everyone who wanted to come is in. So hang tight and we'll start very soon. All right, the numbers keep going up. It's 12:05. I appreciate you all being here. We are going to get started with our presentation for today. And so in accordance with Will tradition, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather from where I'm sitting is the traditional and unceded territory of the Mohawk, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So welcome everybody. We're so happy to have you here, and we're happy to be bringing Renee to talk to you today. A couple of housekeeping tips: for any questions, please put it in the Q&A chat. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll be bringing it up at the end of the presentation, or perhaps we'll be peppering some questions at Renee, depending on how things are progressing today. Note that the presentation is being recorded and it's going to be uploaded to our WIL website following this event. A little bit about WIL. Founded in 2001, Women in Leadership Foundation, or WIL as we call it, delivers inspirational programs that bring women together to collaborate in the development of their leadership skills and creates positive change in the future of women's leadership. Now, a little bit about Renee, our guest today. I'm super excited to have her. Renee Leclaire Smith has over 20 years of experience in enterprise sales and delivery. Her professional strengths are cloud, customer outcomes, and artificial intelligence. She has close to a decade of management experience, building successful teams, fostering cross-functional collaboration and deep understanding of technical services with a strong solution advisory background. An empathetic leader with a say what I think and think what I say approach, and trust me, it's going to come out today. Renee thrives on enablement and removing roadblocks, and I know today is going to be a very dynamic session. Again, I'm super excited to have you, Renee. Thank you for being here with us. Let's get this started. Renee, off to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annalisa. I'm so grateful and really appreciative of Will for considering me for today. And to all you wonderful, powerful women out there, I'm just really pleased and appreciative of the time that you're spending to come and interact with me in this capacity. So thank you so kindly. So let's just get started off. I just want to lay just, a quick perspective on, who am I, why am I here, and, how do I think? First of all, this is a safe space, so I welcome all questions without judgment. For me, curiosity is of extreme importance, so please do feel free to ask the questions. In the write-up, I was a bit specific. I was going to speak candidly about, failings and successes and, moments that were definitely a bit more difficult throughout the career. Other moments that were, just threaded with sunshine as, getting a good win or just meeting some great cross-team collaborators. And, obviously there's also some humor in that as well, and a lot of learning. I like to say that, I just woke up like this, but no, it's a whole path of learning and of growing and moving forward. And there's not one day that I'm like, oh, I should do more of that and have, I have to learn more like this. And I always go back to the basics. I think that the day that I stop adding to my personal doctrine and how I evolve and in my way of working will be the day that I'm no longer here, at least in body. So with that, let's get to it and let's just speak about, how I found this career joy. And even though it's not there 100% of the time, it is mostly there and I strive towards it. And I seek that out through some of the stories that I'm going to be telling you and through some of my own personal mantras. And they don't have to be your own, and that's totally okay. So really quickly, when I was a kid, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I wanted to be an air traffic controller. I wanted to be an air traffic controller as young as maybe 4 or 5 or 6, because I had a few uncles that were really obsessed with planes. And I thought, since I like to boss people around, what's more awesome than telling some of the biggest things in the world, where you can land and when you can take off. So I thought, this is great. I wanted to be a boss of something and something big. So, fast forward to the future a little bit, realize this is not how management or authority works at all. So quite a big, misrepresentation of what it meant doing these things. But what it did tell me, being that air traffic control actually was one of the most stressful jobs and still is to this day for humans, actually. It comes with a huge amount of responsibility, huge amount of stress, and always evolving, right? There's obviously all the policies and all the traffic, air traffic control regulations in place, but certainly you're dealing with lives. So I thought, what, I want to do something that is going to challenge me in the future and that will allow me to grow and be in constant process of learning and, evolving. So to me, staying static was something that I knew that I didn't want to do. So I perhaps really didn't know where I was going to end up, but I know what I didn't want. So how do you find career joy? How do you deal with all the consequences and all the circumstances and the people and the situation? Well, there's one thing that I can, come down to. In life, you can have a plan, but you have to be okay with that plan not happening, because it might actually not mean that, hey, it might mean that it was supposed to be the way that you were supposed to go. Every single time I've made a decision, that decision might not have led me to the expected outcome, but it most certainly led me to either a learning one or another interesting door or something else where I could, once again, use that as a springboard to move forward. One of those big springboards was mentorship for me. I'm going to bring him up by first name only, just out of respect, because he's passed away since, but Randy. Randy to me was, a staunch Republican American. And I'm bringing this up because we were quite polar opposites. I'm the socialistic to a certain point Democrat. And so the fact that we found each other, and, he was about 45 years older than me through my career path. He was a VP, certainly a bit more in terms of the hierarchy. I'm more of a flat org kind of person. So we were trying to find each other. And for some reason, coming back from mat leave, I'd had 2 kids at this point under 2, not planned, the second one, but still a welcome, awesome addition to my life. He decided, after watching me for about 6 months in this new role, coming back from mat leave, I changed jobs at the time, what have you, that he would give me a chance on this really, really awesome account that typically in the landscape of technology, particularly, we'll just call this in the Quebec province, but the Canadian tech landscape, but very much in the Quebec tech province. These are kind of accounts in terms of a sales or technology sales, software, hardware, services, what have you, were typically run by men. And they were typically run by men who, at the time I was 31, they were probably more like between the 45 and 55-year-old mark. And so I come back from mat leave, still wearing those like half jegging elastic pants, just breastfeeding. These are all real things we have to talk about, trying to find, like, how do I find time to do my hair and still come across as corporate? How do I still bring value? I've been on mat leave. I got mom brain. Can I make it all happen? Right. So I'm coming back. I'm working on some other financial accounts, not as lead. I'm kind of like, okay, I was kind of expecting to, to come back to something stronger. But no, he singled me out of all the account execs there. Me, this girl, it still had some, some paint in my hair one morning because we were finger painting with the kids on the weekend. And he asked me to come to his office. He's like, hey, do you want to run this account? And I remember being completely flummoxed because, obviously a part of me who likes to ask why, who likes to ask questions, is super curious, wanted to know, like, why me? Why? But I stopped and kind of just leaned into it. And I realized that this was really an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I know that you might not necessarily pick a woman coming back from mat leave, but still with a pretty good track record to, take on this opportunity. So I didn't ask why. I didn't question. My stomach wasn't knots. I remember going for a walk around the block of the office building, and I had a spring in my step, but I was taking over this account. And long story short, we were going through a proposal to win this business and secure this business with a huge transportation company in Canada. So it runs on rails. So I'll let you determine who that is at this time. But long story short, we won an RFP that I led for over $33 million over 3 years with another $10 million option. And it changed my life. So Randy believed in me through mentorship. He totally threw me into this, unknown. He coached me, but in a way that was very different. He would coach me through asking questions that made me ask questions of myself. So let me get into that right now. The first lesson I ever learned was one of huge humility and a little bit embarrassing, because he taught me intent versus perception. So as we were going through these different iterations, which I was leading the entire team, people questioning him on, the sanity of his choice. Like, you picked Renee for this. She's coming back from mat leave. Is she current? Don't worry about it. It all happened. But the real lesson wasn't the exercise itself, wasn't the RFP, wasn't landing the business, or even gaining the customer's trust. The real exercise was in seeing myself and pushing myself through the next moment. Or as Randy would have said, was I coachable? And was I able to coach myself? So, intent versus perception. I was going into customer presentations or speaking to my peers or my leadership and approaching it with a certain way. And it sounds pretty rudimentary. You think that you're speaking like, oh, this is my intent and I'm using the right words and the right vocabulary. I'm taking the appropriate pauses. I'm showing confidence. Well, it didn't really work out that way. I work fast. You might even be hearing it now. My brain goes 100 miles an hour. I am a fast thinker, a fast doer. I don't sleep very much. I'm a person who runs fast. I always have and probably always will. So it was a bit embarrassing when Randy said that I had to look at myself in the mirror and actually do mirror dry runs of what I was speaking to and how I was speaking to people. And at first I remember being quite angry with him because I thought it was rather insulting. Did you just bring me onto this journey just, through all this time, just to end up here, just to tell me that I might not be good enough, that my presentation skills are off, that I might be running too fast, that my words or my ideas are not clear and concise? So the defining moment of all that was self-awareness. So I chewed on it. Randy and I, for the first time, didn't part ways in the best of moods, but I knew I was going to see him the next day because this was on a Tuesday. I'll never forget that day. So I went home, looked in the mirror, and it took me about 30 seconds to realize, gosh, he was so right. So then I realized I'd wasted 10 years of doing this and not really realizing my intent versus the perception of others, whether it was with family, friends, my partner in my life, or, clients, colleagues, what have you. So I actually worked really hard on that. I came back the next morning in his office and I was already sitting there because I know when Randy would come in. And when he walked in, he saw that I was sitting down in the chair in front of his desk, fuming, of course, not with him, with myself. And he started laughing, the laughter that I will never forget. And then he looked at me and he said, kid, not to be condescending, but remember the worlds that we come from. He says, I think you've just got it. And that's the difference between where you are now and where you will be, because you're coachable because of your self-awareness and you were able to coach yourself. So I'll leave you with that little piece of information, but it was very interesting. And it was definitely a tougher moment for me to really wrap my head around. So going into maybe the next kind of pace of what I wanted to share with you, because it's the elephant in the room. It's the blatant sexist comments in the office. It's the divisive attitudes towards individuals, whether it's around sexuality or gender orientation, or whether it's around personal beliefs. I mean, there's so many ways to be divisive. Mine was certainly a journey through many career experiences in tech, where I have been one of few women on teams. Really, quickly, I can share that with you. I started a Quebec team for Dell in the Y2K days. I was 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 at one point. Microsoft, I was 1 out of 10. I remember being 2 out of 16 at Oracle. So, slightly better odds, not that much better. And up until recent, where I have still a fantastic, really good representation of, gender and culture and, nationality, belief, etc. It's obviously a work in progress. I think that my realization around that throughout my career has been one of intermittent shock and awe. And let me explain. Whenever I was able to get my head around, okay, great. So there is a glass ceiling, but I'm close to it. Or no, the world is changing. We're more equalitarian in our environment. We're more inclusive now. We don't see men and women or non-binary. We just see individuals who are great talent, who bring it to win it, who are passionate. And whenever I would get close to believing that, okay, it's not perfect, but we're getting there as a corporate society, particularly, and I'm talking from my vernacular, right? What would happen is there'd be this event, this shocking event that might actually happen to myself. And I'd be like in shock. And then, I would peel myself off the floor, not at work, but at home. And it would go from frustration and anger, in my words, in my head, fighting backwards. So it's sort of, fighting back against the ghost of myself, which made no sense. What I didn't do is I often didn't speak up. And I know that's a personal choice, but again, in terms of candor and trust and the essence of this conversation with you, I didn't speak up because it's a small world. And I knew I was passionate about tech. I know I have a huge network from the Montreal and Toronto tech corridor that now extends into the Americas. But at the time, it was the Toronto-Montreal corridor. And I really didn't want to put that at risk because in my life, although I'd made some career changes, I knew that this is one that I was going to do till the end of time. I love to be in tech, whether it's in a sales or entrepreneurial capacity. I'm just extremely passionate about it. So I wasn't going to put that at risk. Secondly, I didn't trust the system enough. I didn't trust the system to be able to support and understand and provide clarity. Perhaps you're asking, well, why wouldn't you trust the system? Well, let me give you two factual reasons. When I was at a company, and I'll keep the companies unnamed, obviously, although it does really feel good to be speaking about it out loud today. I don't usually say all these things. So let me get into it. So one certain company that I was at in a particularly earlier time of my career, I had a new manager. I'd won rep of the quarter, twice rep of the year. I was on a roll. If anything, I am competitive. Everything's a competition. And I moved forward into a new role. So I got selected, national career progression. It makes sense. I had a male manager who was perhaps immature, perhaps not quite experienced in the management sphere. Perhaps he just forgot to pick up any sort of book of respect. I'm not quite sure. Made a comment about how I should, come over, meet, him and his wife, and they have pool parties and they have a lot of fun and blah, 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 in the hot tub and other things. And I was actually quite young because I finished school early. I fast tracked through high school and university and all that fun stuff. So I was actually working for tech in a corporate capacity. I had a full-time job by the age of 21. Significant for me. I just wanted to go through fast, like everything, like I've just, told you already before. So he made some really off-color comments. And I remember this had never happened. So this was the first time this had happened to me. And considering it took me a year in the corporate space for it to happen to me is probably saying a lot. Maybe you think it shouldn't have happened at all, but at this time in 1999 and 2000 through 2002, it's a big deal that this happens. So, I walk it back, I keep my head down, I don't say anything, I just get on with my day and, pretend this never happened. This is just really weird. And you're my manager. And I continue to try to foster that, reporting, closing business, getting numbers, and using my performance to really put that front up in front of myself. I ended up changing jobs. I ended up applying online to another company, got a job by applying online. When was the last time you could say that? Doesn't really happen that way anymore, does it? I got a job online through another big, huge tech company. And when I left, it was interesting. So he made some more off-color comments. So at this point, I decided I'm going to say something. I'm leaving. I got this other job. I'm going to say something. So I call a meeting with HR, built right into my exit interview. And she asked me, this was somebody they had sent in from the US. She asked me, what had I done to make him say that? And at that point in time, I'd realized, okay, so in my head, like, what is this, 1960s, 1940s, like what's going on? So that was a shocking moment. So that's number one reason why I didn't trust the system. Number two, I was once sent a book where we were only 2 female sellers a newly IPO'd startup. We were only 2 female sellers out of about 105 worldwide. We were at a corporate event. It was an afternoon corporate event. So it wasn't one of those evening events. It was, roundtable speeches, that sort of thing, in a banquet hall. And, they made the comment about how, he was the COO was very happy about having 2 women out, because everybody else, all the males in the room, were going to be very happy. Flabbergasted about that. I actually got up and walked out. I had enough temerity for that one. And the only female executive who was on the HR team, she sent me a book subsequently to the home office called Play Like a Man and Win Like a Woman. And I believe in literature. I don't believe that I have to agree with everything that's written down, but I will candidly tell you, this is the first and last time I have ever thrown a book out, because, and here's why. I want to be part of a collective. Yes, we are women, but we also can be winning like women and playing like women. So I didn't want to have to change myself, and I just didn't believe in the doctrine, nor did I believe in having somebody send me this book. So I have decided at that point that when I was going to be in environments that were either off color in comments, not inclusive due to my gender, having a customer once telling me that, hey, I don't want to speak with you because, I want a man, please. That all of a sudden I decided that I was not going to play by their rules. So I would change the narrative. Listen, this is how I work. I would insert myself in situations. I stopped asking for permission, and I acted because I deserved it, because I was competent enough for it and could exceed as well as anybody else at that table to be sitting there. I had a voice, I had the track record, I had the passion, I had the empathy, I had the ability to understand intent versus perception and look into that. So do I think the world is perfect? No. Do I think we need organizations like Will? 100%. Do I believe that we need always men to coach us or to teach each other? No, we come out strong from the womb. And the best person to coach yourself is those conversations you have with yourself. And every single opportunity, even through success, is a learning one. Every single change is a learning opportunity. So let me get into the will versus skill. Speaking of learning and coaching. So this is a bit of academia. Now there's different variations of this online, by the way. A lot of this is, you can find different will versus skill matrix. I just make reference to this one. This is a bit of a coaching or team building, how you build out a team or an organization. They say you should have about 25% in guide, 50% in delegate, and 25% in excite. But everybody here has an opportunity to either move out in your organization, move up, or broaden their role in their swim lane. About 10 years ago, I decided to flip this on to myself. Let me explain. So I know, based on my track record, based on doing a bit of a breakdown, and this didn't take me a couple of days, and it took me about half an hour. I just sort of wrote down, when was I the most successful in my previous professional roles? And then I realized that it's not static. Like nobody ever belongs at any one of these quadrants at any given time static. It's organic. It will change with team composition. It will change with perhaps company direction. Your roles change, your organization or your line of business. It might change in an engagement with a customer. So this is a dynamic, organic, breathing, living thing. So I do this, fairly regularly, usually at least quarterly. I do a check-in with myself. It takes just a few minutes. Like, where am I today? Like, where have I been lately? Where do I belong? I realized that everywhere that I'd been successful was when I was in the high will, lower skill. So I'd taken on a new job, fighting a little bit, higher than my weight class, right? Where I still had to learn something, but I had so much will and I'm extremely hard-headed and remember the competitive nature. So I was going to learn. So I still had a good enough, base of foundation of skills. So when I'm in the guide quadrant and the companies for whom I worked for got the best value on me, they monetized me, my expertise, my worth, and my work, of course, in a professional capacity, when I would move over from the guide to delegate quadrant. And when I would get too bored because I had stopped learning, I noticed that I would move down to the excite. So the high skill, low will, like, give me something else. So when that would happen, I would either change roles or change companies, and I would not have the conversation with my leadership. It took me 10 years to figure this out. Now, I don't regret anything. I am where I am today, and I'm super happy. Have a great team, I have great management, great vision. I mean, honestly, I'm in a really sweet spot of my career right now. I'm extremely happy. But what if this happens again? Will I have that conversation? I will. So yes, this might apply conceptually to how we build teams. But if you look at yourself and you find that pattern, and by the way, where you might be changes, but I can guarantee you, I won't change. And it's okay to say, hey, imagine coming into your bosses or managers or whatever's office, or, maybe a supporter who affects, where you're going in your career, and go, hey, I'm unhappy. I want to go somewhere. It doesn't really come across right. Well, what if you could say, hey, you know what? I came into this role learning. So I want to stay up in this quadrant. So I either need to take on new responsibilities. Can I see if I can maybe take on a new role or widen that swim lane? Because right now I'm down here and I have all this high skill, but you're not getting my best. And I'm not able to give you my best because we're not just fitting right now. It sounds like a much better conversation. And all of a sudden you've put it on them. You've said, listen, this is what I can do. This is how you monetize the salary that you give me. I'm learning, so I'm giving you more. So our partnership is way more in sync. I think I just was cowering and not having that conversation. So I build my teams on this balance. It happens more organically than you think, but I do try to figure out where they are in interviews. You don't always know them that well. So it's, but generally you can get it pretty right. But for me, this skill matrix really came in useful when it came to how I was looking at myself. And so I can guarantee you, I have not left in position because I didn't have the conversation. I left it because maybe we just couldn't make it work. But it also told me what I could say during an interview. So when I was looking to come to IBM, I was able to have the conversation and saying, this is what I know, this is my gap, this is how I'm going to bridge that gap, and that's how I'll get there. So just a quick tip, a lot of these tools that we use for people management, like I said, it comes back to my original intro. It's coaching of self. And it's a very humbling activity. You won't always like what you see at all. So, but you gotta take that with how it comes. So exactly. So next up, I want to talk about maybe getting a bit out of the academia and looking at where the magic happens. So there's another slide for that. Perfect. Okay. I am not a graphic designer, just letting you know, but the concept is there. So please forgive my drawing capabilities here. So getting uncomfortable. We saw in the Will versus Skill, obviously you have to get uncomfortable. There's a certain level of introspection. And I'm not saying like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Yeah, we can all do everything better. I'm just talking that we all kind of have a bit of an Achilles heel. I would rather not have confrontation and leave that role. So I want to stay there. So the comfort zone. Nobody grows from staying in their comfort zone. For those of you out there who know concepts about enterprise design thinking and creative design, one of the key concepts behind enterprise design thinking, which is sort of a way to backwards get to an outcome first before you start to solution, whether it's for a product or create a product or what have you. It's called moonshot thinking, which obviously goes back to the moonshot, back to Apollo when they used the moon to shoot it back around and come back to NASA and Earth and everything. So moonshot thinking means there's like a today goal, there's a tomorrow goal, but then maybe you have this like really, really crazy goal. And it's not about that crazy goal happening. It's about if you dream for that big crazy goal, that moonshot thinking, and there's like a bunch of extraordinary things that have to happen. You have to find a way to actually like balance the work, the kids, maybe your job, maybe you're volunteering, maybe you're helping support sick parents. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen, including all the political alignment internally for a role. But what if you could get some of those things to happen? And maybe you didn't get to the moon, but you got outside your comfort zone. Was there a lot of stress? Was there sacrifices? Were there tough conversations? Yes, but the magic where the dreams happen, even if it's not that moon, it'll be something else. Because once you get outside of your comfort zone and you have these moonshot thinking, not just thoughts, put them down on paper, create a mood board, whatever it is, private blog about it, but make them tangible actions, small little SMART goals, measurable, time-bound, attainable. You will get to something interesting. I always believe in something bigger. So I don't care if I got to the moon or not, because I think I might have got to Mars. And that's the way I see it. Okay, so we're done with that one. So yeah, get uncomfortable. That's really helpful. Great. So I just want to talk about perhaps maybe streaming off there from enterprise design thinking. Let's talk about failing fast and failing often. You might have heard that quite a bit, or, always working up in startup mode. These all come back to one very simple concept when it comes back to career joy. Career joy for me means that I'm not always in this artificial happiness of it's awesome, everything is awesome through it's not everything is always awesome. It's not. It's everything is mostly awesome. Mostly. Often. Very, very often. That's for me what is career joy. There are situations that are definitely mostly not awesome, but I try to compartmentalize those, and I do strive for the bigger picture. And one of the ways that I do that is through failing fast and failing often. So in concepts through project delivery or entrepreneurial, you can fail fast and fail often, but making sure that when you're failing often, one, you're not investing in a stock, for instance, too long, even though it might be tanking. Cut the cord, learn what you have to learn, find the learning lesson and change it right away. So it's iterating on your life choices. It is okay to change your mind. I will bring my mother into this because I have tons of respect for that woman, even though we don't always agree. She's always said to me, only crazy people don't change their mind. And a woman who isn't curious is a curious woman. So if you can take some of the older boomer adage out of that, love her. But this is what it meant. I'm allowed to change my mind, and it's okay to believe in something different. So if you fail fast and fail often, and you learn very quickly from your mistakes to move forward, and you apply those iterations, and you're working on yourself and always on startup mode. Imagine if you were doing that in the space of your professional career. Imagine if you were doing more than just the job that you were hired to do. So doing the job that you were hired to do, but then extending that a little bit, just a bit, having that startup mode, having that entrepreneurial mode, looking at how can I bring value additionally to my leadership? What matters to them? How do I bring value to my peers or my customers? What matters to them? And then failing fast and failing often, bouncing ideas off of them, finding out what matters to them. What are their levers of perhaps if you want to find buy-in from your key supporters? How do you get the naysayers to actually, really, cut their teeth on something really interesting with you? How do you bring everybody to grow cohesively as a team, but still grow yourself? When you fail fast and fail often with humility, make sure you sink in with everybody, Teams 360, to really find out what went right, what went wrong. So for instance, one of the processes I love to do is stop, start, continues. Start doing this, but stop doing that, but continue doing that. There's nothing negative about that, but it's all about micro bites, failing fast and failing often to bettering yourself. And then when you better yourself and you're doing that job a little bit beyond what you're supposed to, you'll actually find that those promotions, those career opportunities, those entrepreneurship, whether it's within the same org that you're doing or not, those amazing board opportunities or just progressing, you'll find that they will show up on your doorstep more often than not because you are acting like the job that you want to do. You are moving that forward. Challenge yourself, get uncomfortable, and you'll find people will buy into that. They will look at you not as a person who's just taking unnecessary risks, because you'll take calculated ones. You don't do them by yourself. You'll be doing 360s with a team. You know, to me, if you're doing the job that you want to do, even though you're like, for instance, like, I don't really know where I want to go as my next step at IBM. I'm actually quite content. Right now, I'm moving from that upper left quadrant to the right. And I said, probably I've crossed over the line, but I'm having a good time here. I'm learning and I'm spirited. I have no idea what's next, but there's not one day that I'm not checking in with my team, my peers, those who report into me, with my management, my leadership. I don't check with my cross-functional teams. Every day, I make sure that I'm doing something a bit beyond my job description on paper. And I always get 360 validation, because I want to come back to what Randy said when it comes to will versus skill. Lastly, I'm going to leave you on this point in the next few minutes and just open it up with Annalisa to Q&A, but amplify yourself, amplify others. You know, I'm here speaking with you today, and I'm not any better or any worse than you. You know, I was at a customer once, beginning of my career, trying to act all professional. And they were a book printing manufacturer. I guess it sounds rather archaic now because of the whole Kindles and everything. But back in the day, all the books were actually, you know, hard books for school and stuff like that. So we're walking through, I can say the story, I was with Microsoft, and we were walking through the warehouse. So we had hard hats on. I had this great pair of shoes. I was with my executive, so my skip level was not my boss, but my boss's boss. We were meeting with the C-suite. It was about 23 or 24. For some reason, somebody left some packing sticky tape on the warehouse floor. My shoe got stuck in it, and I flew about 20 feet, bleeding from my leg. My point is, it's really hard to recover and become professional after that. Tried to get up, you know, running my hose. At the end of the day, that's how that went down. You know, I saw that customer about 4 or 5 years later. He still remembered that. He didn't remember like the big deal we closed together. So, you know, you also have to find some moments of humility and hilarity, and, you know, not let these moments get you down like that. No, I look back now, and it's just a bit of one of my, you know, my battle scars or my war stories, if you will, because I still closed the deal. So I got it done with a bit of a trip and fumble, but hey, that's what happened. So amplify yourself, and do it for others. You know, reach out to your allies and your supporters. And if there's naysayers, you know, find a way to compliment them too. Don't be the doormat. It's a give and take. In terms of dealing with the unfriendly ones, understand that it's not you. People will bring themselves up by bringing others down. So the best way to do that is to take away that soapbox, but give yourself that soapbox. Get the buy-in from your supporters. Find yourself a mentor. Mentee people. One of the biggest gifts I ever get is the mentee relationship, because there's such a great give back when you're mentoring. So mentoring and being a mentee is not a one-way street. I actually think everybody should be in both relationships, because you get something fundamentally important from both. And on a last count, one of the great things that I want to just amplify myself with this year, but not through amplifying myself, but amplify my gesture with the great outcome, is that I've hired a really stellar team with people who are better than me to do what they do. So hire people, if you're in a management role, that are better than you are in those specific tasks or knowledge base or talent pool that you don't have. Hire people that are stronger than you, that will come and gap fill those skill sets that you might not have. And you will all become stronger and better together. And by making that right choice and bringing these strong people to the table, you're fostering a next generation of, just awesome warriors who can just go out and get at it. So with that, that's all I have. I hope you enjoy this time with me, and please feel free to be candid about your questions. I'm an open book.
Awesome, Renee. Thank you so very much. Just at the end there, I mean, there's so much that we could talk about, and I'm sure we could all talk about your experience and, you know, what you've lived through. for a long, long time. But you were just talking about mentorship and mentoring. And one of the questions that we have actually is someone's looking for your opinion on what the key elements are for successful mentor-mentee relationship.
Oh, yes. Actually, yes, I'm quite opinionated on that. So the first thing that the mentor-mentee relationship, there has to be the fundamental understanding that it might not be the right fit, and it's okay if it's not. It has to be a valuable relationship for both. It doesn't mean that anybody's bad or not giving it their best. You know, there's a personality into play. So have that candid relationship. You know, the first few sessions, it's a bit of a song and dance, like getting to know each other, right? And that's okay. The second thing I think is the safe space and the trust, the confidentiality, and candor. So the person has to be able to both ways be candid, with respect, of course, trust that the information that they're sharing stays between in the relationship and right in this privacy bubble. And then also any sort of feedback in terms of the feedback loop, the comments have to be constructive, but can also be candid back. You know, candor doesn't mean sugarcoating. It doesn't mean being abrasive either. It means, well, this is how I feel, politely, but it should also be okay. But candor also means that the receiving party on both sides of the relationship, you know, Randy always told me, Renee, you don't have to agree with me, but if you have an objection to what I'm saying and you want to debate it, I'm open for it. Just make sure that you give me a factual reason. Don't come at me with an emotion. So factual reason keeps it at academia and keeps both parties learning. I hope that answers the question. Those
Awesome.
are my feedbacks.
That's great, Renee. Yeah, there are a lot of questions coming in now, which is really great. Thanks for participating. If you put a question in the chat, if you can put it in Q&A, that's where I'm seeing them. So I'll be able to get to you. But here's another one, which kind of made me chuckle. How did you handle mansplaining and sexism in the workplace? You touched on it a little bit, but what else do you have to say about that, Renee?
I fumbled with it at first. Mansplaining. You know, I used to try to be really polite about it. Then I just literally started saying, I understand what's going on. Would you like me to explain it to you? So I'd flip the tables. At first I'd be like, okay, yeah, I got it. Then repeating myself wasn't working. It was just making me frustrated. That's all it was doing. So no, I'm actually quite vocal about it. Yeah, I don't put up with it anymore. But I also get a lot less of it now. So I don't know if I'm starting to have a bit of a reputation on pushing back, you know, in your sphere. I also work in a very, very, very supportive and respectful environment right now, which is sort of new for me. I haven't had this in a very long time. I say, if somebody's mansplaining to you or you know, bringing it down to your level. So in case you don't understand, like, you know, you little lady, we've all been there. I'm being candid, guys, like this really happens. I would actually, I've done this once. Is there somebody in the room that doesn't understand? No, I'm to the point, and I guarantee you that will never happen again. And by the way, you don't come across as the person who's being rude or impolite or out of pocket. All it does is it just puts that person with egg on their face. You don't need that kind of condescension. You know, you deserve the place where you are. You're in that room or at that table or at that meeting for a reason. You weren't invited because you were doing anybody any favors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings back to when you said, you know, you stopped asking for permission because you understood your value.
Yes.
That resonated super strongly with me. We got some more questions here. We have a couple more minutes. So what are some tangible things that you can do to go above and beyond on a daily basis? This person says, I'm not a manager yet, but would like to be one day. What can I do on a day-to-day basis to elevate myself?
Okay, I love this question. Becoming a manager is like a chicken or the egg. You need the experience to become one, but how do you get one if you don't have the experience? It's sort of like getting your first job. The manager bubble is a very interesting sphere. So what you don't control out of the management track is if there's an opportunity or a headcount available for the manager. So what I would suggest is first, if there's no management track within the organization where you are, feel free to look out because, you know, it's like the pyramid, right? There's less and less opportunities to hire or climb up. On a day-to-day basis, there's some really, really great coaching books that I think you can get your hands on. I very, very much enjoy the Will versus Skill, The one that I shared, I think it'll be shared as an asset after through the HR. They have really great concepts. So learn micro concepts. You don't have to go and chew through like a whole self-learning or self-help book or seminar, but learn micro concepts. One good place is the Harvard Business Review. They have these like small PDFs, they're chewable, digestible. You can do a couple in a week. It's minimal cost and a subscription, but they have a whole management track. So understanding micro concepts versus trying to, like, I hate this expression, but boiling the ocean is a much better way to getting that hands-on. On a actual tactical level, if there's a manager that you have that you can sort of do syncs with, what I used to do is I used to do a skip level with the executive. So my boss's boss at one of the companies that I was at, and he would always be in at 8 in the morning. We talked about sacrifices earlier, right? So I would come in at 7:15 every Wednesday morning, and I did that for a year to get leadership coaching advice from him. So you get a shadow, right? Coaching advice. It doesn't have to be the same person. You can find a different people. It's like micro mentoring for very specific. But when you do that, be expected to arrive to the table with an agenda, thought leadership questions. Don't leave it to them to sort of guide you, right? Some people will want you to arrive with content. So validate that with that person. Maybe it's better at a coffee or lunch, but it has to be without distraction. Harvard Business Reviews, management, micro concepts, breaking that into small pieces, way more valuable. And look, because a lot of companies, the IBMs of the world, for instance, have embedded leadership academy management tracks. And I'm not remiss saying that like a bunch of these bigger companies have some sort of more programmatic structure in terms of learning. So there's the academia there as well. I hope that answers.
Amazing. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to get to 2, maybe 3 if we can squeeze it in. But
okay, I'll be fast.
Here's why it's great information, Renee. Please keep sharing. So here's one. It says, first of all, thanks for sharing your story. This person is wondering how you handle a situation where you're the only woman in a senior group, specifically for her, a woman of color, getting your idea accepted. She sees that most of the time, the same idea, if it's said by a man, gets accepted quickly. But when a woman brings up the same idea, even if it's first, the immediate response is either silence or dismissal of it. How would you handle that?
Okay, so there's no perfect plan for this, but I will give you a few levers that you can pull to try to make it happen. One, I get supporters. So find a supporter. If you have an ally, anybody that can help, who has a vested interest, not just because they want to be your friend or because they're nice. Find somebody who has a vested interest in making that initiative that you might have work behind the scenes, but make it documented before. So have collateral, don't just make it a verbal so you don't get your idea stolen. That's happened to me. So lessons learned there. Number 2, it sounds crazy, and I'm not saying that you do this, whoever asked the question, but I would do this. I would always try to find a way to speak up and find my moment, or can I speak now? Because it's like a boardroom and you're trying, or Zoom, and you're trying to jump in. So I would actually call the meeting myself. So I started controlling the tempo of the delivery, and candidly, speaking less and at the right time has more impact than trying to speak whenever you can because nobody's listening. Took me a while to figure that out. So I speak less. Sometimes it means I'm not saying a thing for the first 40 minutes. Or when I still wouldn't get the platform, I would then take control of the narrative with my supporter, say, I'm going to make this happen, and ask this question to your supporter or the person that you want to get in. It might be more than one. Would you object to seeing an initiative that does, XYZ, because it could help you out and me out this way by such and such date? Would you object? People will say no easier than they will say yes. So no, I wouldn't object. Okay, great. Glad to have you on board. All of a sudden you have an ally who's just bought in without them realizing it. Get people to say no. Start with the opposite. Would you object? Would you be against doing something really cool like this because there would be some bottom line advantages, or we would grow our team, or we have this a new initiative? Get a person to say no before saying yes when you find an ally. Build your own narrative. And if there's people who are not supporters, do not invite them to the meeting.
That's fantastic advice. I think I'm going to use that on some of my next meetings. Okay, here's one last one. I think there are a couple that I think you should respond to as well. So I think I'll share them with you, Renee, and maybe we can get
I
the
will.
responses to people. Can you give an example or some examples of failing fast and often, and how you do that while still delivering results?
Sure, no problem. I have an engagement in this recent past few years with a customer, and we felt good about it. Then we didn't feel good about it, but then we kept on going through the process of not cutting the cord and saying, you know what, Mr. Customer, like this is not working. We're not aligned on what our success outcomes should be on delivery. Like, it was a variety of factors. Essentially, we were trying to, shove a square peg in a round hole. Wasn't working. So the mistake that we did there was about extending that relationship to the point that we just had a huge financial burn rate, wasted a bunch of people's time, ended up with a dissatisfied customer and an unsuccessful project because we had a lot of political pressure to get it done. So when I say fail fast, fail often, in more recent times, more recent than that, what I do now as an example on my day-to-day basis is I would rather invest my time where our people are going to be learning, where our customers are going to be happy, where we're all being successful, we're getting revenue capture, market capture, whatever, whatever the outcome goal is. And I will now say it's okay to fire customers. Like it's okay for them to fire me. So do that fast. That's one of the day-to-day basis. If something's not working, if the dance is not working, it's okay to be candid. It's okay to be candid rather than to bleed effort, frustration, and patience. So that's one of the ways that I do that, and then still maintain progression because you're taking that time and investing it into a worthy outcome proposal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Renee. That's it. Questions at the moment. We'll try to get to some of the others with the information we'll be sending out to all the participants, including these great graphics. I thought they were great, Renee, that you gave to us. And so thanks so much, Renee, for your time today. I'm sure people, in the chat, you're going to have time to look through all the comments. People are really, really appreciating your time today and your story. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So thank you all for attending. We're so happy to have our first Will Montreal webinar. There will be many more to come, and there are a lot of upcoming Will national events between March 25th and May 12th. So please check the check on our website and also sign up for our newsletter so you can keep up to date on that stuff. Some of the really cool things that are going to be happening soon is the Indigenous Leadership Forum, March 30th. There's Women in Leadership with Shishendo, April 21st, and there's some networking events as well. They're open to everyone across Canada and the US, and I know that there are a lot of international people on the call today as well, so thank you for being here. Please continue to join our events, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks for being here.